Welcome to ETF Leaders, powered by New York Stock Exchange. I'm Lara Crigger, the Editor-in-Chief of ETF Trends ETF Database, and today I'm joined by Robert Minter. He's the Director of Investment Strategy for Aberdeen. Welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm happy to have you here. So, we have a lot of challenges facing investors in 2022. What do you think are some of the biggest ones, and how can they prepare?
Certainly the Russia-Ukraine situation is a large issue for investors, and they're wondering how do I position my portfolio? What can I do with my portfolio that will help me keep as much of my capital as possible? And so some of the themes that we've heard about from investors are, regardless of your political ideologies or how you see things, in the last year we've seen some governments sort of seize GoFundMe accounts outside of court actions, and we've seen the US government flex its muscles with the US dollar's reserve status and seize central bank assets and oligarch assets, and they're all for very good reasons. However, the impressions that investors are left with is, if that can happen to them so quickly and outside of due diligence and due process, and could it happen to me? And so one of the themes that people are interested in here is alternative assets like Bitcoin and frankly gold. And we do have a tool for investors to use in their portfolio on gold. The ticker is SGOL. And it is a physical gold fund. The gold is actually in a vault. You can go on our website and see the serial number of the bar, and it's not owned by 17 different people. It's the actual, it's 1-to-1 ratio, so it's allocated. And in this manner, people can help offset some of the portfolio concerns if the dollar becomes less of a well-accepted reserve currency.
It makes a lot of sense. So another thing I'm hearing a lot about is ESG, having a lot of conversations about that. Tell me, how are you looking at the ESG movement right now?
The ESG movement is first of all, it's huge, right? US, China, Europe, combined economies of those three regions, $51 trillion. They're all going in the same direction at the same time, and so it might well be the largest project in human history if we can pull this off. But there are going to be bumps along the road, and so will there be even enough materials for all the electric vehicles and wind turbines? And we think most analysts think no, there will not be, but there also are some clues from governments. China, for a very long time, has protected its supply chain because it's a very large consumer. However, 2 years ago, Europe started something called the European Raw Materials Alliance, which is designed to protect the domestic supply of these materials that are needed for renewable energy. And the US, not to be left out, did the same thing last year. We didn't have as much fun with the name. It was US Energy Department called it the Battery Materials Program or something, and but it does the same thing. It ensures a domestic supply of materials, and so we also have a tool for this theme. It is the Bloomberg Commodities Industrial Metals Index, and it's copper, aluminum, zinc, and nickel, which are used for copper's in anything electric, wind turbines and solar panels and electric vehicles, and aluminum is actually used to lightweight the cars to offset the very heavy batteries. So that's important. Zinc is used to galvanize steel that are used for the wind turbines. And nickel, of course, is used in batteries and will be even more used in the future. So we think that we're making a switch rather than all of a sudden the renewable energy is now seen as a national security issue. Energy always is and always will be a national security issue. It just hasn't been seen that way for a little while, so we might see some more funding and more emphasis on making better progress for the renewables transition.
Makes a lot of sense. So I know you're constantly having conversations with investors of all sizes and backgrounds and so on. So what are you hearing from them right now? What are they concerned about?
So the more popular question that we get is the commodities move over? You know, commodities all of a sudden are in the news because of the unfortunate situation in Europe with Russia and Ukraine. But really this story, the bullish story on commodities, started a year and a half, 2 years ago. And just for instance, agriculture, there's everyone knows about El Nino, but has an angry sister, La Nina, who does the opposite. And it's actually cold water in the Pacific Ocean, and it tends to pull moisture off the land and into the ocean, over the ocean. And so that causes drought in South America and North America and can lower crop yields. And it did last year, and it is going to do it again this year. La Nina is already in effect this year. And so what you wind up having is a period of low production, and then you leave that year with low inventories and you go into another year of low production. That sets up a very bullish scenario for pricing. And so that happens even without anything going on in Russia and Ukraine. And same thing with oil. We haven't really spent anywhere near enough on capital expenditures for oil and gas. And you know, over the last 5 years, we would have needed to spend $500 billion in CapEx just to maintain the production, and we spent half of that. Then we drew down inventories last year. There's not much spare capacity. And then on top of that, you add the Russia-Ukraine situation, and you wind up very quickly in a supply problem.
Well, it definitely sounds like a quickly evolving moment and a quickly evolving market. So thank you so much for shedding a little bit of light on it for us, Robert. Thank you for joining us. This has been ETF Leaders, powered by New York Stock Exchange. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.